So, greetings, dear friends. It's very lovely to be able to spend some time together in meditation and also to share some Dhamma teachings from the Buddha. So, first of all, let's meditate together for half an hour or so. And I'd like to offer some guidance at the beginning of the meditation. And then that will relate to the teachings that we can discuss after the sitting. So please make yourselves comfortable and notice how closing the eyes and bringing the mind into the practice, formal practice of meditation. Let's just notice how that is. So we're making a kind of determination to sit still, reasonably still, to not get up and do something else. And in this sense, in this way, we are letting go of the world. We're renouncing the world. We're putting aside, aren't we, anything else, any other action, speech, thoughts. These things can fill our day, but this is our chance. This is our time to put all of those things aside and to simply be present. And closing the eyes has this immediate effect, cutting off the seeing. So much of our attention can be engaged in seeing, and so now we can put that aside as well. Put aside tasting, smelling, touching, thinking, hearing. Not completely, maybe, but we can definitely determine not to allow the attention to move away from the object of meditation, whatever we choose to observe. Let it be in the body. Let it be here. Let it be with us, here, sitting, or in whatever posture we're practicing at this point. Let the attention be here. And we can notice, the effect of stopping, assuming a posture that we're determining to maintain for half an hour, and bringing the attention to bear on this moment, this experience, this simple abiding, coming back to the elemental, fundamental experience of being here, however that is, whatever it is we notice, moment by moment. Coming into the body, feeling, noticing the breath. Noticing the stillness. Noticing the silence within. Allowing the quite natural sense of letting go that's happening. as we sit, as we meditate. Sense of relaxing, releasing tension, resting in presence. Breath by breath. Coming home, coming to this felt sense, this being here, abiding, letting go of any thoughts of past or future or anything at all. Just letting them waft on by. We can notice the quality of letting go, of not grasping, of not adding anything to the beauty, the immanence, the perfection of this, just this. Nothing to get, nothing to get rid of. Just this. And even as we start to really settle into the space, start to relax, to unwind, even as we release and let go of the world, anything that's not present, we can notice change, constant flow of experience, process. See how there's a constant change apparent in every experience, every feeling, every breath, moving, shifting, changing. Anicca, impermanent. Anicca sanya. We can observe this truth, this quality in all things. I'd like to invite you to bring this in to our meditation today. Notice anicca. Notice the change, the impermanence, the flow of all the dhammas, all the experiences arising and passing. Even where we might have a very solid sense, such as the weight of the body, or pain in the body, chronic aches and pains that are so familiar to us, the hardness of the body, its solidity. Even in these experiences, let's notice Bring the mind to bear on this perception of impermanence, of change, of flow. See if you can notice even these most solidified seeming experiences, also shifting and changing, also moving constantly, dhammas arising and passing, arising and passing. I'd like to invite everyone to see, consider, bring in this awareness of anicca, of change, of impermanence. Breath by breath, moment by moment, just like a river flowing by, looking the same, but constantly changing when we really investigate and observe with wisdom. So we'll sit together for another 20 minutes. I'll ring the gong at the end of this short meditation session. So welcome again, dear friends, and thank you to all those who joined in the meditation practice. I'd like to speak a bit more about anicca sanya, about this perception of impermanence that the Buddha encouraged us to cultivate. But before I do that, I'd like to begin by paying homage to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. So, speaking about the benefits of considering the Buddha's teaching on the reality of change, of impermanence. My first teacher, Goenkaji, he would emphasize this understanding of reality very much in the courses, Vipassana meditation courses that he taught and that are still being taught, with videos and recorded teachings by Goenkaji even today, even though he passed away a few years ago now. He would refer to anicca sanya, and he would encourage the students to bring in this perception of impermanence, inconstancy, constant change as we're meditating. And I think this is an extremely valuable instruction. So we can have, an object of meditation, we can have our practice that we're doing, but to bring in this lens, to see through the lens of noticing the change, noticing the way that all experiences we can have are coming and going, and actually at a very rapid rate. The more we look, the more we consider anicca sanya, looking at our experience in terms of, is it permanent, is it lasting, or is it changing? The more we can see, we can perceive that all dhammas are arising and passing, very rapidly. The experiences has a kind of quality. Any experience has this quality of almost like flickering, doesn't it? Or vibrating or pulsating, or there's an on-off quality. There's a kind of fluctuation that's going on within and around every experience. And this is both that which is experienced and also that which is experiencing. The change is happening in every respect, in every dhamma, in every aspect of what can be known, what can be felt, what can be perceived, what is happening. I was reading some suttas in Samyutta Nikaya on this topic of anicca sanya. There's a very beautiful section in the Kanda Samyutta, which is the third of the 5 sort of volumes of Samyutta Nikaya. Kanda Samyutta, all about the aggregates, and many other things too. But this middle chapter, this middle section of Samyutta Nikaya has a number of chapters, and one of them is called the chapter on, let me see if I've got it written, the chapter on the arrival at the truth, Okanta Samyutta. And this entire chapter is devoted to the Buddha's teachings on impermanence. And it covers, there are 10 sections to this chapter, Okanta Samyutta, Samyutta 25, Samyutta Nikaya 25. All these chapters are covering all the possible ways in which we can experience reality and applying this lens, this way of seeing experience, of witnessing, of being the experience through this lens of seeing the change, seeing the inconstancy of everything. And, you know, to really contemplate this is quite a powerful practice for us, and can feel quite destabilizing, but not in a bad way, in a good way, in a way of enabling us, you know, to let go of our delusions, of the distorted ways in which we see reality, and so to free up, to wise up, to appreciate the truth of the way things are. So we can begin. I want to try and describe this section of the Samyutta Nikaya, where the Buddha is, in many different teachings, actually covering all the different ways in which we can meditate, in which we can experience reality. And he starts off by encouraging us to see how seeing is an experience that is one of perceiving sights as coming and going, arising and passing, and also the eye sense door, that which receives the sights, is also, we can perceive, this is also something that arises and passes. It's constantly changing. So the sights are changing and the seer is changing, or the seeing is changing. How do we appreciate, how do we experience seeing? There's the arising when there's a sight, and there's the eye sense door. Then there's contact between the two, and consciousness arises, doesn't it? We know this from the Buddha's teachings, that there are actually 6 types of consciousness. Seeing consciousness, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking consciousnesses. And these also are arising and passing, depending upon contact between, in the sense of, say, in the example of hearing, the contact between sound, the ear, and consciousness arising, hearing consciousness arising. So there's this coming together again and again of these different dhammas, and the experience of being alive is one of, isn't it, a kind of dance of all these different inputs coming at us one after another, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, and none of them last for any great length of time. There's a constant interplay going on from one to another. So the consciousnesses are not lasting, but they're flowing. There'll be hearing followed by seeing, then maybe smelling, then touching, then thinking, and they don't actually connect. They are separate, but they are happening with great rapidity, kind of one after another. And it's really interesting to consider this teaching of the Buddha because our experience is quite different often, isn't it? Our experience, our sense of the world is one of a coherent whole where all these things come together and they create a sense of past, present, future, of me and mine, kind of predictability. We can start to make assumptions about reality. But when we really begin to practice meditation, we can start to perceive, we can start to feel out, to understand that actually our experience is something quite different, isn't it? Our experience is something of a flow or a process of constant change where all these elements are coming and going, and we start to be able to deconstruct, don't we, to dismantle the construct of solidity, permanence, predictability, also the construct of somebody, me, who is kind of behind all of this or within all of this, or that all of this experience is within this me. We can start to see how this too is something that's created and is also constantly changing. We can start to notice the sense of self arising and passing and not having a lasting, permanent quality to it at all. In these teachings in Samyutta 25, the Buddha also invites us to investigate, to examine. We have sense input. We have consciousness arising as a result, say seeing consciousness, due to contact between the object and the organ of sense and the consciousness. And then we can notice that what happens is often there's some kind of feeling that arises, some kind of sense of liking or disliking, pleasant, unpleasant, or just letting it flow by, neutral feeling. So we can see that there's this whole other dimension of experience that follows on from sense input, which is this kind of response. And we can notice that this too arises and passes. Feelings come and go. The Buddha described feeling as like bubbles on the surface of, say, a pond or a lake in the rain. It's raining, the droplets of water are hitting the surface of the body of water. And what happens? The bubbles form. They arise and pass so quickly. It's a constant stream of droplets coming down from the heavens to hit the surface of the water. And the bubbles come and go, come and go, come and go. Don't last for any length of time. And the Buddha likened this to our experience of feeling in the body, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. There's a tremendous turnover. We'll have a response to something, and then the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And so we can start to see, again, through our meditation practice, can't we? If we pay attention to feeling in the body, my goodness, it's kaleidoscopic. Things are constantly rearranging themselves, like a sandy beach on a windy day. You know, the little tiny pieces of sand blowing around. Nothing stays still, even for a moment. And as we can appreciate the reality of the swiftness of change in relation to what we feel, we can start to free up, of course. How can we identify with any kind of feeling and make it me or mine when it's so insubstantial, it's so fleeting? So we can again start to deconstruct, to let go of the sense of permanence, predictability, and the sense of self. And in this chapter 25 in Samyutta, the Buddha also invites us to investigate further what happens when feelings arise. Often there'll be a knock-on effect and a perception will come up, some kind of judgment. Pleasant feeling, I like it, I want it, and I'll label it as this or that so I can make sure that I recognize it and know whenever I can. Unpleasant feeling, perception of not liking, wanting to get away from, judging critically, harshly, disapproving of, and so forth. And so we can see again how perceptions are constantly arising and passing. And, we can observe this too in our practice, because when we're sitting in meditation, there'll often be reactions, won't there, to experiences. And we tend to, have this system that's playing out right in front of our gaze of, assessing, judging, labeling, pigeonholing, categorizing our experiences. The mind will be doing this. If we notice this, it's really wonderful to see perception at play and to recognize and notice that this too, this whole field of experience, perceiving, is one of constant change. Perceptions also arise and pass away. They are dependent on feelings. Feelings are dependent on experiences through receiving the world, through the sense doors. And so all of this cascade of experience, we can break it up in this way. And we can notice how this quality of anicca, of impermanence, is absolutely imbuing every aspect of experience. There's nothing yet that I've talked about that is not impermanent. And we don't have to believe that because the Buddha said so. Obviously, his invitation is to investigate, see if we can find anything in any of these experiences that is permanent, that lasts, that's not arising and passing. And we can do this investigation. We need to do this investigation for ourselves in order to deeply and kind of holistically, thoroughly, fully understand this reality of anicca, of impermanence, of constant change. And we start to feel like, we're really living in quite an unstable situation here. From perceptions, the Buddha said, notice how, perceptions will sometimes, often give rise to certain thoughts, certain concepts, certain intentions. So, it starts to come very close to our sense of who and what we are when the Buddha starts to consider for us, investigate for us, and elucidate for us that even my thoughts are simply results of perceptions, which are results of experiences leading to feelings, from feelings to perceptions, from perceptions to intentions, to thoughts. Everything that I consider to be my intentions, my plans, my life, my past, my future, the Buddha in these teachings in Samyutta 25 is really telling us and inviting us to consider that even at this level of experience, there is nothing but constant change. And there is a kind of dependence. There's a dependent origination that happens. We don't have thoughts without some kind of cause. And the cause for our thoughts and intentions can be found in perceptions that arise as a result of feelings. So we can start to really free up and let go of the sense of agency. If we see clearly, if we're willing to investigate deeply, we can see that all our sense of will, our sense of purpose, our sense of what we're doing in the world can be broken down and can be seen as dependent upon experience. And experience itself, we could say, is dependent upon the karma, the karmic predicament that we're in. So there is cause and effect, and there is nothing personal in that. There's a playing out of dhammas. And the beauty of this, of course, is that we can begin to let go, deeply let go of anything that's tethering us to samsara, anything that's imprisoning us in this world of suffering. You know, it's an amazing journey, isn't it? And it's a journey towards ever greater uncertainty, ever greater openness of mind and heart, to willingness to let go of all that we think we know, of all that we think we are, and to recognize that all we're really letting go of is suffering, is delusion, is ignorance. So these suttas really go very much to the heart of things, very much to the essence of the practice and the goal of the practice. So in this chapter, the Buddha also invites us to recognize, investigate, and recognize the impermanence in relation to the material world. And it seems so obvious in a way, doesn't it, that yes, of course, in the material world, there's a constant recycling that's going on. We know that these bodies are changing all the time. It may not be perceptible on a daily basis, but we do know, we understand. It's not difficult to appreciate that 40 years ago, this body was very different from the way it is now. When we're born, how very, very different we become as the years roll by. And of course, we see all around us people aging, people dying. And, you know, these are kind of obvious truths. The truth of anicca on the physical level is kind of obvious for us. But nevertheless, how deep does our understanding go? How extensive is our realization of impermanence when it comes to this one, or those around us? How extensive is our understanding of anicca when it comes to the things that we love, the things that we covet, the things that we long for. And so we can, understand impermanence in relation to form, in relation to material things, but we can certainly give time, give space to developing the understanding, allowing it to deepen, allowing it to kind of percolate through the entire mind and body. And considering again and again. I like to myself consider in the morning when I wake up to put myself into a corpse position. So lying on the back with the arms crossed over the chest, legs straight, and just to lie there for a few moments in this posture and to bring to mind, to recollect, to bring into awareness the thought of, well, this one day, this body will be in just this position, quite probably in a coffin somewhere. And to really just allow that thought, that understanding to be present, allow it to kind of fill the mind, fill the heart. I find that really helpful. It gives me a good start to the day. Non-Buddhists might feel, well, that's really weird and morbid, perhaps. They might not. They might understand perfectly the value of this contemplation. It's not weird. What it enables is a sense of, well, this could be the last day. This could be the last breath even. This moment is so uniquely precious and not to be taken for granted. Who knows when death may come? And the follow-on sense that arises is one of, let me make the most of this time. Let me behave in this day as if it's my last one. And how is it possible then to hold on to any kind of history, to hold on to any kind of grudges, to allow oneself to do anything other than practice, with full effort and bringing up full energy for the day. And so in this way, it's very interesting, like contemplation of death, Maranasati, contemplation of the mortal nature of these bodies, it really lends itself, doesn't it, to, making the most of life, like really living, really utilizing, the little bit of opportunity that we have in this lifetime to liberate the heart from suffering. So in this way, it's the mind tends to veer away from thoughts around mortality, death and dying. And it's very kind of programmed in for us to do that, to want to ignore the end, But actually, as the Buddha told us repeatedly, to allow ourselves to bring the concept of death and dying to the fore and allow it to inform the mind and heart. This is so helpful for us. It's actually far from morbid. It's very energizing. It's also in some ways very peaceful because it's the truth. And when we are with that which is true, when we're with impermanence, when we're bringing it into awareness and allowing it to, everything in our experience to reflect back to us the truth of impermanence, then we can kind of rest. We can relax into what is real. There's something about the truth that is so easeful for us. It's like a relief for us, isn't it? Like a person who's been parched with thirst, roving around in the desert of delusion, of believing there's permanence when there simply isn't, believing that there's somebody here when there simply isn't, to actually come then to something like a beautiful oasis, a clear, fresh source of water, and to be able to slake that thirst, drink the water, drink the beautiful, true, essence of the Dharma, and allow ourselves to be refreshed by the truth of impermanence, by the inevitability of death. These are refreshing, in many ways comforting contemplations, because they're true. They bring us to that place of peace, resting in what is true, resting in the real, and helping us to step forward, move forward on the path of practice towards freedom from delusion. So in these teachings, where the Buddha, as I've explained, is speaking to us of impermanence and inviting us to see all our experience in its reality, in its nature of constant change, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, the consciousnesses that arise as a result of these sense experiences, the feelings that arise, the perceptions that arise, the intentions and thoughts that arise, seeing all of these as, each and every one of them, as changing, arising and passing, being rapidly replaced by another experience and another experience. In all of these teachings, the Buddha has a constant refrain. And I'd like to speak a little bit about this refrain, which is very encouraging for us. As I mentioned, my teacher, Goenkaji, really emphasized the importance of developing anicca sanya, perception of impermanence. And reading these suttas has really helped me to appreciate all the more his approach, because the Buddha says in this section of Samyutta Nikaya, number 25, he says, considering this teaching that I'm giving on impermanence in relation to all these different experiences, he said, a person can accept these teachings with wisdom, and in their accepting the teachings, they can start to develop this understanding. Or, he said, another kind of person will follow these teachings by hearing them and by arousing faith, by having a sense of giving time, giving space, giving credence to these teachings. This kind of person is a follower by faith. There's the followers by wisdom, and there are the followers by faith. And the very interesting thing in these teachings is that the Buddha is really saying that either way, whether you apply your wisdom to appreciate the truth of change, constant change, or whether you believe what I'm saying and are willing to give credence to this possibility, to check it out for yourselves. Either way, he says, one becomes Sapurisa Bhumi. One becomes a person who's standing on the ground of those who are good persons, good people. One leaves the territory or the ground of those who are ordinary people, ignorant people, people who don't understand the way things are. Putujana, one is leaving the ground of the putujana, of the ordinary folk, and one is stepping into the territory of the good, of those who are good people. So that's very interesting, because there's a sense then of, there's a kind of change of lineage that can come about if we're willing to apply this understanding, this possibility, to consider and investigate and bring in the understanding of impermanence, of anicca sanya. If we can do this, if we can bring this into our practice day by day, session by session, experience by experience, then we are moving from the realm of the ordinary person to the good person, the practitioner, the sapurisa bhumi. We're standing on the firm ground of the good person. So this is something really quite encouraging. And the Buddha also says in the refrain to each of these teachings that there is an inevitability that we will be walking on the right way. So there's no deviation possible from the path if we have this concept, this reality of change in the mind, in our kind of repertoire of practices. If we keep bringing in the awareness of change, of impermanence, then there's an inevitability to our practice. I find that really uplifting. The word is samatha niyama, which Bhante Sujato translates as an inevitability. It means, samatha means rightness, and niyama means certainty. So, if we can cultivate the awareness of change, then this is setting us on course and inexorably moving us in the right direction, the direction of Nibbana. And indeed, the Buddha goes on to say in these teachings that such a person cannot do anything that will lead to a lower rebirth. So again, for me, there's a flavor here of sapurisa, of a good person, a person who's unable to do anything so harmful or so unskillful that they will find themselves moving in an unwholesome direction, going to an unhappy destination in any way. How interesting. So the understanding of change helps us to avoid any kind of harm. And that's something to consider, something to contemplate. How true is that? How true is that for you? If we have an inclination to hurt or harm ourselves or others in any way, how does the understanding of impermanence help us to avoid moving in the wrong direction? And for me, it's really like I've been considering this, and I can appreciate that if I understand the changing nature of all phenomena, their insubstantial quality of constant change, how can I make a problem out of anything? How can I consider carrying through any kind of unwholesome word, act, or even thought? Why would I do that? And the sense I get is that when we are really aware of change and really noticing the arising and passing, then we let go we let go very quickly, we can really see unwholesome quality arising and let it go, see how it can pass. There's a kind of sharpness, there's a kind of acuity of vision that comes about when we're looking through this lens of anicca, of impermanence. And I just invite you to investigate this for yourselves and see how helpful it is in charting our course through life and enabling us to avoid unwholesome behavior, speech, and even thought. We just want to drop it. Those drops that are arising and passing that are unwholesome, we're going to drop them. We're going to watch them dissolve very quickly, and impossible then to hold on to anything unwholesome or even wholesome. But we'll be particularly on the ball when it comes to any kind of inclination or tendency to make more of unwholesomeness, to make more of reactivity, to allow any kind of negative response to have a life, to have any permanence in our hearts, to grow in our hearts. With anicca sanya, with awareness of change, we're able to let go very quickly and to be very vigilant in this way. And so in these teachings, the Buddha says, yes, such a person who is through faith or through wisdom, cultivating the awareness of anicca, of change, such a person is not going to do anything, is not going to fall for any negative roots, unwholesome roots that will lead to a lower rebirth, that will lead to a darker future, that will lead to any kind of unhappiness as a consequence. So how uplifting is that? How encouraging is that? And then the culmination of these teachings, which is really quite amazing for me to take on board, is the Buddha says, such a person who cultivates awareness of change, is unable to die without attaining stream entry. So this is a significant teaching for us. It's a doorway to the development of path, to the point where we are, as it says in these teachings a little earlier, inexorably, inevitably moving in the right direction. We're not only moving in the right direction, but we're moving towards stream entry within this very lifetime. And so this is something that, for me, brings these teachings into very stark relief. They're very significant for us. Let us take heart. Let us consider the importance of developing the awareness of change, of impermanence, of the insubstantial nature of all these experiences that the Buddha has described for us. Basically, all the ways in which we can experience the world. Let's consider, therefore, every experience has the quality of impermanence, uncertainty, insubstantiality. And in this way, we can see how relatively easy it becomes to move through, let go, discard any sense of permanence, any sense of ownership, any sense of self, and to free up, to be able to observe life flowing on by, and to recognize that all of it is simply that, simply a flow. And not only that, but to bring the attention to bear on that which is observing, and to recognize that, this consciousness too, this experience of consciousness is one of constant change also, arising and passing also. And in this way, we can really root out the unclear seeing, the deluded seeing that gives us any kind of sense of something lasting here. What a relief to put that down what a relief to let go of absolutely every experience and every concept and every tether that's trying to tie us up in knots of delusion, to let them all go, to let it all go, and simply to be able to move towards the ultimate happiness and peace of Nibbana. Ewan. So thank you for your kind attention, everybody. And I want to have a look at the chat. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to just scroll up and greet you all. Rick and Dolly, Yankee, Janaki, Victor, Renalyn, Upasika Metika, and Suresh, and Jayantha, Anthony, hello, and Karen, and Amaranta, and somebody with lettering, but which I can't read. Greetings. And Dharmananda Bhikkhu, greetings, Venerable. And Kim, thank you all for being here. And okay, Rick has a question. Thank you, Rick, which I'm going to address. I just want to also greet Po Leong Soon and Shadow of Label and Bitukan and Todd. Greetings all. Rick's question. When I first had direct experience of impermanence in daily life, every solid thing seemed to be made out of dry sand, which was constantly slipping and sliding through the fingers of an open hand. Sadhu. Ayya, could you speak to how our craving for creating / becoming relates to the suffering we experience when we experience impermanence, change, or loss? Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Rick. Yeah, it's really poignant, isn't it? Because we have this very strong inclination to becoming, to a kind of push into the future, a very powerful wish to be here, to manifest, to become the next thing. This bhava tanaha is a source, one of the kinds of craving that we experience. There are three main kinds of craving: craving to become, the craving to not exist. Also, vibhava tanha, the craving to get away from, to cease, to get rid of, and also kama tanha, the craving for sense desires. And this quality of bhava tanha, yeah, it's powerful and potent for us. It's why we're here. We wouldn't be born without this incredible drive that brought us into this life. And, you know, it kind of propels us forward. And we can notice it in our meditation practice, can't we? When we say, have thoughts of the future, when we make plans and get kind of really upset when they don't come to fruition, or when we're obsessing about the way things may go one way or another. We can also feel it in the body, I would say. It's an energy. It's like a fire that's burning within. And so we have the opportunity to contemplate and to really consider this kind of energy. And, you know, if we allow ourselves to follow in any way this craving to be, to become, when we are faced with the inevitable unpredictability of life and the constant change in life, it's like two tectonic plates bashing up against each other, isn't it, Rick? It's like these two things don't go together. My sense of needing permanence and needing a future, needing to exist at all, and the reality of impermanence, they just don't, they can't coexist. One has to give way to the other. And in an ordinary life, ordinary way of life, people who are not interested in spiritual practice, who are not seeking freedom from suffering, will tend to identify with the desire to be this powerful momentum and resist change, resist it in all sorts of different ways, and suffer terribly the consequences. And so, we resist reality as much as we can, but then there'll come a point where somebody we love, dies, say, and boom, the tectonic plates hit, and we're just traumatized by the wrongness, the sense of wrongness, the sense of impossibility. This shouldn't be happening, couldn't be happening. Why is this happening to me? And so forth. This is huge suffering for us. But if we take on these teachings of the Buddha, bring in the understanding, at least consider the possibility of the impermanence of all things, all experiences, everything in samsara, moving, shifting, and changing. If we take this as a contemplation and we bring it into our practice and notice the truth of this teaching in all the ways that are described in Samyutta 25, then we can begin to align ourselves with the truth. And this other aspect, this other way of being begins to unfold for us. And then, when people die, when we lose loved ones, when our own life comes to an end, we are, we're ready. We're not fighting. We're not making a problem out of what's natural and inevitable. We are able to accept. And not only that, but we can often become a great source of solace and strength for others, because we're not caught up in fighting reality. We're not arguing with reality. We're flowing with change. And so we can rest in that truth, and we can then look around and there's a stillness and a well-being here that's not been really ruffled terribly by the experience. There may be grief, there may be a longing and missing, but we can experience all those things as dhammas that are constantly arising and passing. We don't have to suffer, even as the body goes through grieving and there's a sense of loss in the mind. There doesn't have to be suffering around that. These things are natural, inevitable, normal. So we have a spaciousness of heart. We may have a sense of well-being. We probably will, even within difficult experiences of loss that are unfolding. And so we can, often offer a lot of comfort and help and support to those who may be really caught up in the sense of trauma, in the sense of wrongness, because they haven't perceived, they haven't allowed for the inevitability of change. They haven't understood that, of course, all things come to an end sooner or later. And in fact, as we continue to practice and develop our awareness of anicca, we can recognize that change is happening in every moment. There's no two moments that are strung together in reality. There's nothing that lasts beyond this experience. Everything is arising and passing with a tremendous rapidity. And we don't have to take that on faith. We can consider this and we can practice and notice how true it is that all our experience in meditation, as we develop mindfulness, we can see that, yeah, that's how it is. Nothing lasts, even for a moment. Experiences are coming and going rapidly. It's like all the stills of a movie. You string them all together and you've got a movie, but we can start to break down the movie, get behind the projector, look at the film, and see how it's one still after another. That's the reality of our experience. Constant change, moment to moment. Absolutely nothing lasts, and all is lost from this moment to the next. And when we start to recognize this reality, we can really be very free and very quick, to come back to the sense of presence, even within grief and loss and difficult things happening. Within that, there's a clear understanding that there's nothing here that can really shake or ruffle this heart. We're in the flow. We're simply flowing with reality. And how can we not accept the way things are when we are seen clearly in this way? So I hope that meets your question, Rick. Please come back to me if not. Thank you. And okay, I've got a question from Kim. Thank you, Kim. Impermanence is so hard to grasp, even when people around you die. Like, that's not going to happen to me. Well, precisely. Yeah. Actually, I mean, I think it's really important to consider, just like I do in the mornings when I wake up, to bring in the kind of recognition that this body is on its way out. It's just a matter of time. And, because we can see, we understand after not too many years of this lifetime that people die. And it can be, when we first experience the passing away of somebody around us, it can be very shocking. And even the thought that everyone's going to die can be very shocking and really have a tremendous impact for the good for us, because it's a way in which we can wake up to the way things are and begin to appreciate the truth, the reality of samsara, which is nothing other than, like a huge recycling process. This entire universe is constantly changing, and things are forming and reforming with incredible speed. And so this is how it is. Well, we can really appreciate that as we experience life and death around us. But there's something quite significantly like a kind of barrier that we often face, isn't there, when it comes to this one? Which is, of course, because we identify with the khandhas, we identify with this consciousness, with these thoughts, with this body even, and its feelings and all the perceptions that arise and pass. We do have a very strong habit of stringing all these things together, and we develop a very powerful sense of somebody here. And this is where we live within this very powerful concept of self, and it's really like the air we breathe for most of us most of the time. It's such a given, it's so taken for granted, and it's so untrue. But because we have a strong sense of selfhood, it's really hard for us to imagine that there could be an end to that. Actually, there is no death. Of course, there's no death. There's just constant change. What dies is the sense of self, is the delusion of self. It gives us enormous pain and suffering if we don't let go of the firm grasp on the sense of self, we need to be very aware that the Buddha was pointing to this as the most fundamental knot, the most fundamental delusion that we are kind of gripped by until we're not, and all of our practice really is encouraging us, including, of course, the contemplation of change and the recognition of constant change. It's all helping us to, begin to loosen this knot, this kind of conundrum, this delusion that creates so much suffering for us. So, it's good to, in short, Kim, it's really good to consider this one, I am mortal being. I am actually nothing at all, but any sense that there is of being this body, being this mind that is going to die, we can investigate. And when we consider death and we bring it to mind, consider the death of this one, then we can see where we're holding on. And it gives us an opportunity to investigate the grasping at permanence, the grasping itself. So it's a really valuable, and honestly, let it be a daily practice to remember this one too is changing. This one too is going to end, come to cessation, is coming to cessation. And to just let that, highlight for us, let it really shine a light on anything that's holding on to a sense of self, and just to investigate that again and again, we can really let go of a lot of fetters, a lot of bondage, a lot of chains, a lot of distress through these kind of contemplations. So I hope that's helpful, Kim. Thank you for your question. Okay. One more question. How perfect. Actually, we're out of time, but very quickly, I'll try and answer very quickly. Shadow of Label, thank you for this question. What is beyond nirvana? What happens to tomorrow and the next sunrise? Oh, that is so brilliant. How can I give you a short answer? I would say that it's very difficult for us to comprehend what is nirvana. And the reason is that nirvana is beyond our comprehension. It's absolutely not possible for us to bring our intelligence to bear on nirvana in order to understand it. And I think I'll have to leave it at that for now, because we're out of time. I know that's not satisfactory, but let's see if I can come back to your query in the next session that we have. Thank you, Shadow of Label. And you had another question too. I'm so sorry that we're out of time. Thank you, everybody, very much for your kind attention and brilliant questions. And wish you all well. Every blessing for your practice. Take care.